Hi, wanted to do a brief video before Pesach, but before I do, I've got to send out my thoughts and prayers for a speedy eradication of this coronavirus and a refuah shalema, a speedy recovery to anyone suffering from the consequences of it. I want you to share a thought that's put at the end of the Jonathan Sachs Haggadah, but sort of build on it an awful lot and sort of apply it to another question that you may ask on the Haggadah. He asks on the Charoses, which is like the pasty, gooey pate that we have on the Seder plate, why it is that it can have a dual meaning. Now, in fairness, a lot of the symbols on the Seder plate have a dual meaning. But for the Charoses, on the one hand, we learn that it represents the cement that was used by the children of Israel to build the mausoleums, the cities, the structures of Egypt. But on the other hand, it also represents apples and apple trees. And because apples are a common ingredient in Charoses. And the idea behind that is it's a reminder of the apple trees that the Jewish women particularly would go to be with their husbands and to conceive, but also to give birth, because the apple trees have low-hanging branches that were able to conceal themselves, so they had a sense of privacy and dignity. And he asks how it is that this paste, or whatever you want to call it, this goo, can have two very different meanings. And the answer he gives is that they represent two conflicting attitudes to, I guess, broader speaking, freedom, but to the future. So, in the one hand, for the Egyptian mentality, for them to have memory, for them to have something in perpetuity, for them to have a future, it had to be bedded in the past. So they built these mausoleums, they built these big structures to be remembered by in years to come. And in fact, as anyone who's been to Egypt can see, you can still see them today. But for the Jewish people, our attitude to the future is very different. It's not about sticks and stones. It's about our children, our family life, the Jewish family. That's how we build our future, by passing on our heritage, by passing on our traditions to the next generation, which is obviously a key feature of Pesach and of Seder night. And it's those two conflicting approaches, cultures, ideologies that are represented there in the Charoses, that one item on the Seder plate. But what he doesn't say is, well, why is it that one is different from the other? Why is it that Jews are so different from the Egyptians? And what is it that made the Jews different? What mind shift did they go through? And like all good Jewish boys, I'll give the answer to that question with another question. A key feature of the Haggadah, which, to be honest with you, with my kids, we often sort of skip through because they've run out of songs, they've run out of voice, is the main core of the Maggid section, which starts with Say Lamad, go and learn. And it introduces a portion that we learn about, where it gives various verses that relate to the Exodus, to Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the question you could ask is, why say Ulamad? Why go and learn? Wouldn't it be more enticing, more engaging to use Bo Ulamad, come and learn? The word say, as in Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt, means going out from something, going above and beyond, coming out from yourself, from a step away from your comfort zone, which is what the Exodus was. The children of Israel were very comfortable in their lifestyle in many ways in Egypt, because their needs were taken care of, and they grumble a lot in the desert when they're taken out by Moses about the lifestyle that they had, comparing it to life in the wilderness. But for us as Jews, what's important is to take ourselves outside of that comfort zone. Take ourselves outside of what we know and love and dare to be different. To learn new things. And to, yes, dare to start a family, to start to carry on in perpetuity. And know that every child is precious and every child represents a link from the past to the future. And so that is what differentiates us from the Egyptians. The Egyptians saw their gods in relationship to themselves. They couldn't see outside of themselves. That's why so often we see anthropomorphisms in their descriptions of the plagues. The Egyptian Khartoumim, the advisors to Pharaoh, the wizards, some translate them as, describe the finger of God or the hand of God when describing the plagues, particularly the plague of Dever, the plague of death of the livestock. Because that was a plague that had no way of relating to it. They woke up in the morning and all their animals were dead. All their domesticated animals were dead. There was no way of them seeing the hand of God in that, so they had to interpret it in an anthropomorphism. So they saw gods in terms of themselves, and their statues show this, because their statues are depicted in terms of animals and people. Whereas for us, our God is something very distant from ourselves, is very different from ourselves, something we can emulate, something we can aspire to, but not something that can be described easily in human terms. So we need to relate to it, and we do that through prayer and through keeping the mitzvahs and learning Torah. But that's the difference between us, who are the people that say ulamad, go out of ourselves to learn, versus the Egyptian ideology, which relates everything back to ourselves, back to themselves. There's a big fashion at the moment to be talking about the growth mindset in education and other psychological settings. And of course, this relates back to that as well. Taking yourself outside of your comfort zone, having that willingness, that keenness, that enthusiasm to grow and to learn is very much a part of Judaism. I wish you and your loved ones and your family a Chag Kasher v'Sameach, a happy and above all else, a healthy Yom Tov. Thanks for watching.